Clubhouse. I've been the program director for the content regarding the NBA playoffs and some other rooms, including the hashtag I Back Naomi room for the Pro Sports Network. I do have another room for the Clippers and Mavs that I might have to go to because it looks like one of the moderators is running late. But Lisa actually is a friend of ours, has done collaborations, including sexual assault within the scope of sport and covering the Deshaun Watson case. So you're in great hands with somebody who's very knowledgeable in a very multifaceted field of mental health.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. And if you have to scoot, like, no problem. And I'll make sure that your rooms are running as smoothly as possible as well. So I just appreciate your presence here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's get going. So, I was in the hashtag I Back Naomi room on Monday for 2 hours. It ran for six, a little over six. Chris moderated that with a bunch of different moderators throughout those hours. And we had a lot of rich discussion. It was just awesome. So I want to thank Chris for holding it down for that long. And then, surprisingly enough, through one of my networks, and I can't emphasize enough how building relationships is so important. You just nurturing them and being in the moment with them and giving and providing service and contributing, it's solid. So when you do that, naturally things come your way. And this, interestingly enough, came from one of those relationships. And so on June 1st, Monday, today's Friday already. Wow. I got an email and then a text from one of my connections from Galea Health, which I encourage everybody to look up. GALEA, GaleaHealth.com. It's a newly launched platform for athletes to access mental health services and or sport performance services. So I encourage everyone to reach out. So one of my colleagues and friends from that platform was like, we just got contacted from Time magazine to ask if one of our therapists could speak to Naomi Osaka's stance on prioritizing her mental health. And I was honored and privileged that they would think of me right off the bat. And then within a few hours, I was talking to him. So I don't know if you guys have checked out that Time magazine interview yet. It's in my bio in my link tree if you want to check it out. But why I'm bringing it here is because the "they ain't ready" in quotes. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, check it out. Look at this article and check out what they put there. She's like, okay, yeah. And I was like, I talked to the guy for like 20 minutes. And it's interesting, the 3 sentences that I have in that article, or 4 or whatever, it's interesting the ones that he chose. And so I'm thinking like, oh my God, is this what the athletes feel like? Sometimes of course, I'm not going to compare myself totally with any kind of elite athlete or Naomi Osaka for that matter, but like to be able to be asked questions, answer them from your heart and do your best. And then what's printed is printed. You don't have any control over what's printed. I felt like it fully didn't represent the interview or who I am, which is interesting. I don't want to sound ungrateful. I'm very grateful because it brings visibility to athlete mental health. But I thought it was very, very interesting what was not there. And so issues of race were not included. I talked a lot about that. Issues of gender inequity, systemic oppression, structural oppression, antiquated systems. So these types of issues that are really important to me, social justice issues that I spoke of, were not included in that article. And then so my friends are like, they ain't ready. And Time magazine has a certain kind of audience they want to be able to be accessible to. So I just wanted to just start the conversation with anyone who'd like to join in, just on your thoughts on Naomi Osaka's stance, and then just this experience with Time magazine or any like major sort of outlet like them, how they would then continue to only be able to handle maybe one big topic at a time. So with that, Donnie was the first one. He was in here early. He raised his hand right away. Donnie, what do you think about all this?
Well, I've worked with men the past 5 years doing personal coaching with guys going through divorce. and separation from their children. And almost always mental health is a big part of it, right? And when I see a high profile athlete bring attention to mental health, it's important because people all have opinions and they think they're more important than this person actually having access to their own self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And here's someone who didn't worry about what people thought. She did what she knew she needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And more athletes need to take this stance, because the requirement of having to go for press conferences and stand up and answer all these hard questions with little or no time to process what their emotions are is highly toxic and very unfair to these people who spend their lives and their passion in their sport, and deserve respect for it.
I agree. And I want to hold the other side to the coin. Um, People are going to say, well, doing these press conferences is part of your job. That's what you signed up to do. This is, I mean, you get a lot of benefit from what we write about you. You get a lot of exposure. You get sponsorship deals as a result. Like, what would you say to that, Donnie?
I look at Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He did his
Yep.
requirement in the
Yep.
interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and he just said, "I'm not answering any questions. I'm here because I have to, so I don't get fined. I don't care." And
Mm-hmm.
and that shows you the ridiculousness of forcing people to do something they may or may not be comfortable with. They didn't all sign up to be public speakers. These people pour their heart and soul into their sport because they love it. And they're penalized when they reach the pinnacle because as a society we tell them what they should and shouldn't do. That's the opposite of living in a free country.
Love it. Okay. I'm going to bring Marco up and acknowledge some other folks in the room. Um, Marco is a friend and colleague here in Clubhouse. And of course, there you go. Hey, Marco, I'm going to get to you in one moment. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. I want to acknowledge Luri, Beanie, Jakota, Merlin, Josh, Richard, Charlene, and Katsushiro. Nice, you guys are all here. This is an open conversation. All points of view, all ideas, all thoughts are welcome here. I want to provide an equitable space for everybody to like just be who you are. So feel free to raise your hand and contribute to the conversation, or you can stay there and listen to whatever you'd like to do. Marco, what's going on?
Nothing much. How you guys doing? No, just listening into the conversation on this with the topic and media and sports. Being around the professional level and being in the room when media kind of is asking questions towards the players is just kind of interesting. I've always had a kind of like a thought on this, and I don't know what you guys think as far as one, should media, at least media members, should have they had participated, or one of the requirements should for them to maybe perhaps have had participated as an athlete at the collegiate level to be qualified to be in the media room to ask questions to the athletes.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought, because you're thinking then they'd have some empathy and understanding of what the athlete they're interviewing is going through.
Correct, because I mean, I'm not trying to act the media. The media is the media, and that's with everywhere they go. And obviously, at the end of the day, stories sell, whether negative or positive. And sometimes, and I've seen this in live person where some of the questions that the media ask is, they try to either elude something, or they try to ask or kind of almost like corner the player with the question so they can get the answer that they want, so to speak. So it's something that's kind of interesting, and I've seen it, firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you have. That's an interesting question. Donnie or Josh, I know you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself yet or say any opening remarks, but any thoughts on what Marco's presenting?
I think it's all interesting points, but another thing I wanted to add to that is I always find it interesting how the media has access to the locker room when people are getting changed. I find all these things just so odd. In no other profession in the world do we subject people to this kind of behavior.
Right, the intrusiveness of it. The intrusiveness. I think that's an interesting point of training the or screening the interviewers as athletes or prior collegiate athletes. That's interesting. Or some kind of training on how to interview properly, or like how to interview. I don't know. It's interesting. Donnie?
And how about permission too? Like, can you imagine actually being a respected athlete and saying, "Hey, this person wants to come in. Are you guys okay with that?"
Right. I mean, how about consent? That's what you're talking about. Go ahead, Marco.
Donnie, it's funny that you bring up the topic about media being allowed into the locker room before the game. Was very interesting. You know, all my years there with the Lakers, as soon as media was allowed to come in, I think from what I remember, I think it was like 60 minutes before the game. There'd be times I walk into the locker room and there'd be no players in the locker room because they would leave to go to the lounge, and there's just a bunch of media people just hanging out in the locker room, sitting on the chairs of the players, like just chatting away. I'm like, no players are here. Why? You know, why?
Because the players were smart enough to leave the room.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Correct. No, I agree with you. But then the media's like, okay, if there's no players here, why am I here? As far as from a media perspective.
Waiting for that off chance that they'd come in. I don't know. It's just.
Which it doesn't happen. It won't happen. But yeah, like you said, sometimes they'll come in there to grab something, and then when they come in, they'll like try to grab them. But it is what it is. I mean, that's the media. That's part of the league, and of course, the league needs exposure. They need the media somewhat on their side at the same time, and that's just like a relationship that it operates. But I think you're right, Lisa. Should there be some kind of training or something that's sort or exposure to media? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's something that's going to come next, because that antiquated system of the way that they do it now is no longer relevant. I don't know if it ever has been. So that needs to come about. But Josh, how's it going? Welcome to the stage.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I listened to the room that we had right after the incident happened when she
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
left the tournament, and
Yep.
I just wanted to say I really loved what you said. You know, I agree with what you said, and I definitely am with Naomi. I stand with her, and I applaud her decision to withdraw and not have to deal with the whole this whole messed up situation. And I actually think it's a good thing that we're talking about this, because I believe it's something that's kind of overdue. Personally, myself, I cannot imagine myself having to deal with the media. I'm a very private person. I don't like to share anything about myself. So the fact that celebrities nowadays, well, athletes have to you know be exposed so much to people and have to share so much about themselves, besides sports, actually their personal life. And the fact that she had to share the fact that she was hurting, just to be understood, which she didn't have to do. She was forced to do it just to try to make people understand, to leave her alone a little bit. And I think that's unfortunate, just the way things are going. It's almost like athletes are more like advertisers than they actually are athletes. And I think it's something we need to talk about. We need to evaluate what is the role of media in sports, really, when it comes to talking to athletes, what they talk about. Because it's always about trying to get a scoop, trying to create a new something, just to create traffic to all the social media and news stories. It's a cycle, and it gets really tiring. Personally, I don't listen to you know these kind of interviews in the locker room. It does not interest me at all. I don't really care. um, I respect the privacy of people just in general, especially players. I already understand that it's pretty tough already being exposed to so much, having to take in so much. So, I try not to be that extra, uh, you know, load to kind of make it even tougher for them to get through whatever it is they're going through. So yeah, I just really applaud her move, and I hope this is gonna maybe change a little bit in the better way. The way we engage with athletes or just celebrities, just in general, really.
I mean, what do people think? Thanks, Josh. I appreciate all those thoughts. Thanks for being in on the room this weekend and taking in the conversation and probably contributing as well. I appreciate that. We appreciate that at Pro Sports Network, and just anyone who's a mental health advocate and activist for athlete mental health. We appreciate everyone who can talk about it. Um, what so I the media is one thing, but then the expectation of the athlete to be interviewed is another. So it's the approach that the interviewer takes, and then the time that is mandated to be interviewed. Like, is there an issue around that expectation or the structure around it? um what do people think about that? And again, anyone can come on up. Paige, what's up? Oh, she left. Anyone can come up and join in. Donnie, Marco, or Josh, what do you think about that aspect?
Well, I think if you relate an athlete in the workspace, because that's what they're in what other workspace do we put that kind of pressure on someone and ask them questions of a personal nature and put them on the spot to everyone? No employer in this world is allowed to do that except for these leagues who make tons and tons of money, and they're pushing these people who are employed by them to do what they're told.
Well, I'm gonna put a different perspective in the room right now for people to discuss. But not everyone's workplace is open to the public, and not everyone's job is to to perform or play in front of the public. So how do we differentiate that?
What's wrong with giving people the respect they deserve to start with?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest issues. There's a way that athletes are dehumanized. Like, they're just supposed to perform. They're just supposed to do what they're told. They're just supposed to, as we've said many a time, shut up and dribble and just do what their contract says for them to do, and with no regard for the humanity. Marco, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out there a question. Now we have the athletes are mandatory, they're mandated to be interviewed after the game. Why not the officials?
Interesting.
I think that would open up Pandora's box for them, because they would get criticized on every last call.
I mean, that's what the players get criticized on their playing. So why not the officials?
Bam. Well, I think it's interesting because there's a whole new movement now. I don't know if you guys have seen it, to be able to tend to the mental health of the officials because of everything that they get. Did you see that, Marco? Marco, did you see that?
I'm sorry, I think I lost you there.
Oh,
No, what happened?
about how that there's a movement now for the officials to also be prioritizing their mental health and putting services in place for them.
Oh, I have not seen that. Okay.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Is that what do you think of that?
I think what's good for them should be good for everyone in the sport.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hey guys, I'm going to reset the room. You guys are here on Pro Sports Network. We're talking about Naomi Osaka, and her prioritizing her mental health, and the Time Magazine interview that I was on, that they interviewed me on. I wrote an article and left out a whole bunch of stuff. But like the idea that they can only take on one big thing, and that is mental health at a time, not the social justice issues that go along with it that also contribute to mental health. So I just want to just holler out, Luri, what's up? Beanie, Ronald, Jakota, Richard, Charlene, Katsushiro, Scott, Nick, and then not EJ. You guys can come on up, raise your hand, join on the conversation. Josh, do you have anything that you want to add or say?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the refs having to also being given treated for mental health. Um, I think it's a good thing. Of course, everybody deserves it, but I'm not sure. I don't feel they're as much exposed. Well, we're talking about the media here, so I guess it's a little bit different. but when it comes to you just having to deal with the players and um, you know making all these calls, I mean, I understand, um, but I mean, I don't really see the point. I'm still wondering, is it really that necessary, or I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that.
Interesting. Good. I appreciate that. I mean, I think from my perspective as a mental health professional, we don't wait for there to be an issue to engage in a therapeutic relationship potentially. Like we are trying to destigmatize the idea that you have to have a mental health disorder or an illness to engage in therapy. Like we treat physical health preventatively, right? Why don't we take mental health preventatively as well? And get in there and just speak your feelings. A lot of people don't even know how to do that. I'm not judging, but people haven't been modeled that or taught that or seen that that's valuable to be able to say how you feel, to name your emotions. So then that you can actually then learn how to cope with them um, through tools and skills and strategies to cope with what you are feeling, and then to be able to shift your overall emotional reaction to something. So I don't know if it's about, is it needed, or are they going through the same thing or as intense a thing? I think it's, making it available, normalizing it. Um, Donnie, what do you think about that? Oh, Donnie's gone. He'll maybe come back.
No, no,
But
sorry. I was I had a little situation here for a second,
oh, no
but
problem.
I was also going through the article because I wanted to bring attention to that because that's the whole idea of being here.
No, that's okay. We don't have to be. That's okay. Wherever it goes.
But like I think every person should be allowed to stand up for their own life, right? And obviously, if someone's struggling, they should be able to ask for help, and that's really what we're talking about, right? This is somebody who felt they needed help and addressed their own situation. I don't know if that answers it.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important point. Again, humanizing the athlete. They're not just an object or commodity. They have experiences and go through things just like anyone else. Hey, Beanie, how are you?
Hey Lisa, I'm good. How about yourself?
Good, good. Nice to see you again. I know you were in that big I back Naomi room as well over the weekend.
Yeah. No, congrats on the time piece here.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I 100% support particularly any black woman who is taking a stand on some issue where she definitely feels like she is being harmed in any kind of way. 100% back Naomi on that and support her in taking care of her mental health. If she wasn't prepared to step, to move forward with what she had earlier agreed to do, then she did the right thing for herself. That said, there are two things here that are, I think, are also just getting lost here. One is that Naomi, tennis players are not employees. This quote unquote league is not the same thing as the NFL or the NBA, where those guys are actually getting checks from the league and the teams. She is an independent contractor. That means essentially she is a corporation. Her business signed a contract with another business to do said thing. She backed out. They tried to get her to reconsider. They reached out to her team. They didn't want to reconsider. So part of that breach of contract is, you know, here's our remedy, $15,000. And part of that is because in in essence, her doing this. Now see, like I work in film, right? So if I employ an actor, there's an expectation in a contract that that actor has to promote that product. And if we get to the week of the release and the actor is just like, nah, I'm not gonna do it for whatever reason, even if that person, because actors are, especially at a certain level, they are their own contractors as well. They're not employees of the studio. They basically are all independent contractors. So everything from Denzel on Tom Cruise on down, these are independent corporations that are representing these people. So it's a corporation signs an agreement with a corporation. So like if I do business with you and you back out on me and we've signed this agreement, the idea that you don't owe me something, that I owe you something. And this is where the French Open is coming from. Because essentially, by her breaching the contract, what she has done is introduce breach of contract for future athletes going forward. And if they can't enforce the contracts that they've signed with these athletes, it puts their entire business model in an existential threat. Because at this point, even if somebody is actually sick mentally, have some mental health issues, there always stands a chance that there might be somebody who isn't, who just decides they don't want to do X, Y, and Z for whatever reason. Maybe they don't like how they're seated. Maybe, I don't know. It could be any reason whatsoever. But the thing is, if they're going forward trying to sell tickets based on not just Naomi, but whoever big name star comes along next year, 5 years, 10 years, and there's volatility there in terms of we get to the day of the event and what they have sold and promoted in good faith to the public can easily the people that they've sold and packaged can just pull out. Would you want to buy a ticket to an event like that when you don't have any confidence or very little confidence that the people you thought you were going to see won't be there? And this isn't like the NBA or the NFL where you get at least 16 games or 100 games or whatever like that. This is a one-off event. The French Open that's it. And so yes, from what they're saying, as a corporation, we are not your employers, but we are giving you, there's an opportunity for prize money. There's an opportunity for you to have exposure. There's an opportunity for you to have a platform. And through that, for what we are providing in our platform, you can do whatever you want with it. And that's where she's making her real money, is through I don't know, it was something like 30 endorsement deals that she's got through this exposure.
Right.
That's the agreement.
Right.
So it's like, if you want to do business with me, how can I, in good faith, do business with you if you sign a contract with me? If I sign a contract with you and I can't enforce the contract. So essentially, she's put, and you have these four organizations together that make up the Grand Slam. And if all four of them are looking at, my God, we can't enforce contracts going forward, we how are we supposed to sell the product?
Beanie,
So in this
you're so
situation,
smart.
go ahead.
This stuff. I love all your knowledge. That's so smart. And I totally agree with honoring an agreement. And in this case, a contract. So then that means the way I'm thinking about it is the way these contracts are drawn up are antiquated. They're not inclusive enough to put a clause in there or an addendum that if there is a mental health issue, just as if there's a physical health issue, that these are the terms in which that contract is null and void. And so that we don't have that right now is an issue. And so that's what we need to change moving forward. And then so that these athletes and the person they make or the organization they make contracts with can both be in good faith, follow the agreement that they made and honor their word, which is where this comes down for me. So like I think that needs to be in place. And that's what it is in employer situations. They have EAP, they have access to help to things that they need to stay employed, to stay doing their work. Independent contractors are not. So I just want to like point that out. I wonder, is this system of the contracts that are in place antiquated and like no longer relevant?
I think
I
that
don't know.
also is the beauty of being a contractor, though. You always have the ability to leave. She could have lied.
Exactly.
She could have lied. She had the courage to be honest. And I think that makes her more respected, and she should and deserves a lot of accolades for that.
Actually, no, because it's like, if you don't like the situation altogether, then you don't have to participate, period. There's nothing that is forcing Naomi to participate in any of the Grand Slams.
For sure, but her
She doesn't have
sponsors
to
could
do
drop
that.
her, is her concern, right?
Exactly. So she is reliant on them.
But she's
Therein
made the
lies the
choice to
issue.
be honest, which is a lot harder to do.
Well, honesty is not going to help the 9,000 people that were also reliant on the jobs at the French Open. That stadium employs, are they not also entitled to have compassion and humanity for them who aren't making money based off endorsement deals, but that are just making money based on the concession stands?
Well, again, the
Are they not?
structure is old. The structure is not supportive of these people that are doing their jobs. Naomi, the 9,000 workers. There should be clauses again around, like, if the match happens, you still get paid. You know, you still get your.
How do you enforce that though? How do you enforce? This is where the issue comes in, and this is something like I think every league should look into, no matter what. But how do you enforce without without getting into someone's personal business to validate whether or not what they're saying about their mental health is true? How do you do that?
Well,
Because, like, for example, like when I was in college and people running track, I can't tell you how many people would, like, when they saw who they were about to like run up against, suddenly had a hamstring issue. People do stuff like that.
right.
So how do you enforce this? This is what I'm saying. Like, you can have that in a clause, but essentially what it's going to come down to is you're trusting the athlete's word. And
Why
as
would
a business and a
why,
corporate, like,
no, I think it's a great question. And this is where it's leading. It's like these systems have to adjust. And how do we adjust it? I'm not a lawyer. I don't work in film like you. I don't have that kind of experience, but I have written many a letter justifying leave from work because of a mental health has declined into a challenge / diagnosable condition. And I've been able to write that and let people have leave. That's where that comes in. What this workplace should have that ability as well. And how do we put
I
that systemic, process is the question. I don't have the answer.
and I agree with you that there should be something there. I just also think that, you know, I just lost my train of thought. But there just isn't any way to actually enforce that.
Yep.
Therein lies what the
Not
problem is
yet.
always going to be.
Not yet, Beanie. Maybe we can work together to collaborate on that. Because
Hey, I'm definitely happy to do it because I would love to see her. That was my point. The thing was, I think ultimately for them, she put them in a large bind. You had two things that were happening this year with the French Open, really, was you're talking about volatility, and I'm hoping everyone understands what volatility is in the marketplace. Essentially, when things are just kind of going up and down and you don't know that there's any kind of certainty. And markets technically don't like volatility. If you've heard the term black swan recently, which I think has become kind of popularized over the last 10 years, black swans are the result of volatility. It's basically like 99% of the time this would never happen. But then that 1% happens, which is
right,
essentially what COVID is.
right,
COVID's part of volatility. So no business likes volatility because you can't really plan around it. And COVID hit them hard. They usually sell 5,000 tickets a year. This past year, that was like 1,000. Plus, they were using their own employees to fill out the seats. So you had that. Now they're moving forward. They've sold their number two player. And on the day of, she's like, I'm out. So it really, what I don't think they would have, I don't think the organization wouldn't have backed her, but she put them in a bind, which is really her team put them, her legal team, her IMG, I think that's who she's with,
right,
put
right,
her in a bind.
right.
And so essentially that was wrong on their part. But then, of course, the French Open comes back, and then they look very petty because, of course, they're upset about this situation because they know what this could potentially mean going down the road. So now you have a situation where you have both sides have done something that isn't best for either the player, the organization, or tennis as a whole. But if she had either one of two things, really kind of talked about this beforehand and, like, really had this out, or just kind of said, I'm just going to sit out the French Open period up front, then I don't think we would be having the same conversation. It wasn't that she pulled out, but they were reacting to you're pulling out at the 11th hour. And what does
Right.
this do to us?
Hey,
So it was really about the timing.
Beanie,
And
you and I can
exactly
talk for hours on this. I want to actually. I want to engage this, but I want to give anybody else who has a chance.
Yeah,
If no one else
definitely.
up, if I'm just going to go through everyone who's here and acknowledge people, and if they want to come up, they can join in on this I love rich conversation. Beanie, thank you for being here and offering those perspectives. We're going to be here together till 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to acknowledge Luri, who's here still. Thanks for being here, Ronald. Greg Louganis, Olympic athlete. I mean, amazing story. Thank you for being here, sir. Richard, Charlene, Katsushiro, Scott, Nick, Angie, and Bonita. Please feel free to raise your hand and come on up and engage with us on this, very complex, emotional conversation and topic. So if no one raises their hand, I just wanted to give maybe Donnie or Josh a chance to have some comments about what Beanie is presenting here and the conversation that she and I are having.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Beanie, because I'm actually learning a lot. So many things that I actually didn't know about. So thanks for your insight. I appreciate it. For me, I suppose because I wanted to make a comparison between, the tournament and maybe the NBA or any type of leagues out there. But like you mentioned, I suppose I can't really do that because it's these are different type of contracts. She's an independent contractors compared to like a whole team, I suppose. I was gonna, for example, mention, I don't know if you watch basketball, but what happened with 2 years ago, I mean, a few years ago back with Kevin Durant when he was playing for the Warriors, and how he was hurt, but he wanted to play in the game, and he actually got hurt even more, and that he had to wait like a lot longer to be able to get back on the court. And just now, I'm also thinking of, for example, Anthony Davis with the Lakers, who wanted to play, but because he was hurt, he was not able to help his team out and win. But what if he actually listened to the advice of his the doctor to not play? But what if he had pushed through and played and got hurt even more, and it could even end his career. We don't want to go there. So I'm just thinking now, what if is mental health supposed to be put on the same level as physical health, for example? Um, I don't know if Naomi was, for example, hurt, God forbid, but if she was hurt, um, would they have fined her for not being able to play, just simply not being able to play? I mean, she didn't. It's not that she didn't want to play; she didn't want to do the interview. That's the part that actually baffles me. The fact that the power that the media has kind of goes over the power of just people having to enjoy the game as it is. um I that's really what baffles me. I don't really see why that is. She could have still played and do the interview at the end like she said she would have done, but just because they find her, they were gonna keep finding her, I guess. She just decided she didn't want that attention, and she has the right to do that. So yeah, just a lot of things to think about. I think this is a good subject we need to maybe talk about more. But yeah, I think I'm learning a lot.
Thanks, Josh, and I appreciate your comments. And I mean, from where I sit, yes, mental health should be treated equivalently as physical health. The priority is equal. That's what we were trying to get to with more raised awareness and destigmatization of what mental health is and isn't. People think mental health is synonymous with mental illness, and it's not. There's still a big, and so conversations like this, being able to break that down. So I'll take that opportunity now. Mental health is we all are born with it. We all have a biological disposition for how healthy we are when we're born. Environment has influence over that too. So our ability to be socially, emotionally, and psychologically well all together create our mental health and how healthy it is. stressors might come into our lives, different types of things we have to deal with that make that up the ante and how we have to cope. So learning those skills, strategies to deal with it. If it gets so overwhelming, it can possibly dip into a mental health challenge and then dip down into a mental health disorder or illness where it's actually diagnosable. Diagnoses come from a set of behaviors and criteria within a certain duration and severity over a certain amount of time for it to be diagnosable. And then with that comes treatment. So we want to keep it as optimal as possible by allowing people to have their emotions be validated, heard, expressed, and then the ability to use tools and strategies to help cope with your experience of your emotions, and then have a social outlet of support people who have your back 24/7, who you can receive from and give to. So when those things are taken care of, that's what mental health can be the most optimal. So I just wanted to, I'm always trying to build awareness about what mental health is and isn't, and break that down. So thanks for that. You had another good point, and I got sidetracked. I think it was, I forget, Josh, you'll have to chime in a little bit and remind me. But Lori, hey girl, how are you?
I'm good, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Um, yeah, this room is very interesting. I was actually listening to, everything Beanie was saying, and obviously it does make sense. However, I also, there's something that I can speak for as the daughter of a former Major League Baseball player, and any professional athlete can say, when players are competing at these high levels and these high platforms, they don't just come up with excuses just because. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, I have a headache and I don't want to play, or oh my gosh, what. No, usually a lot of the players that I've lived around and I've come across even play hurt. And sometimes, like Josh was saying, sometimes even hurt themselves more because they're playing hurt because they don't want to not play. So when Naomi did this, for me, the first thing I thought, and maybe it is just because I am a daughter of a Major League Baseball player, and the first thing I thought is, wow, there really is something there. It wasn't just out of the blue, and it was definitely like her last resort. That's my opinion on that. I think that a lot of people, obviously contracts do need to be changed because like you said, yeah, the US Open in tennis is just one person. But what if she got sick? What if she got the flu? What if she got COVID? So why should her mental health be treated any differently than if she would have gotten hurt, or, anything different, and for any other player? You know what I mean? I understand refunds, and I understand how, because this is a business, and yes, I come from a baseball background, so I know baseball is a business. But I think a lot of, teams and owners and businesses need to be more, have more empathy, and need to think more, not only about making money, but also about the player. And I understand, like you were saying, Beanie, it comes with the territory. They've got it. Yes, all that I completely understand. But I think that that's where the athlete loses power. And after all these people are there to see the athlete. So why should the athlete not be okay and still play? So yeah, that's my point on that. So thank you, Lisa, for having me. And this is Lodi, and I'm done speaking.
And if I may add real quick, just on what Leary was just saying, I agree. And I, I'm thinking of this on a much deeper level. Like, I'm going way past, the subject maybe, but I'm thinking in the economics standpoint. Um, I'm thinking what this comes to is just, the economic system that we live in. Really, everything is tied to money. The systems that we have in place to optimize revenue and create wealth, and the whole thing. So I don't want to go without trying to go too far. I'm just trying to say that I think this is all tied to money, and the fact that it's controlling more and more pretty much everything, and I mean every single thing that we do, to a certain point where it makes it unhealthy for us to actually be human. It's almost dehumanizing to actually be normal and to do something that anybody would be, should be free to do. It's almost like we have to push ourselves to go above and beyond to a certain, to a, a degree that's actually not healthy. At the end of the day, we're all human. We have limits, and we need to reconsider what it is to really be human, what it is to be an athlete, what it is to be a professional, and also the economic system we live in. Maybe we need to restructure, like, for example, everything, the way everything is going right now, it's all about ad revenues. Pretty much in any industry, it's all about making money through ads. It's almost like there is no more value in actually creating something that's tangible, that's pure. It's always about, promoting something, and that's how people generate money. So maybe we also need to rethink, how do we generate money? What systems can we create to, uh, you know, um, to create incentives for, you know, more uh, diverse ways to create income and to create revenues. So that I know I'm going way past the subject, but I was just thinking of all this while you were talking, and I'm done speaking.
Well, Josh, not really, because I think that's all connected, and like my quote up here about the Time Magazine interview talking about they ain't ready, because I talked at depth about this stuff. But Josh, you're ready. You're very ready to talk about this. I think a lot of people in the room are. And so just because Time Magazine wasn't ready, that don't mean we don't talk about it. So all of that impacts our mental health, our relationship with the systems that are in place around us that potentially oppress us and not empower us. So, this room, these talks are all about the opportunity to talk about these things. So, Josh, thanks for going there. And we have about 10 more minutes left together. Hi, Angie. I'm going to welcome you in one moment. I just want to reset the room. We're here at the Pro Sports Network. If you haven't followed our club, please tap on that green little house, talking about, the Time Magazine interview I had with their sports reporter, and what we talked about than what was actually published. We're talking about all the issues they did not publish. I'm still grateful for the opportunity, because it builds visibility and awareness, and we're going to take it from there. We'll take what we can get on a large scale, and we're going to keep talking about the issues that were not addressed in that article. Please feel free to raise your hand and come on up. Before I welcome Angie, Donnie, did you want to say something real fast?
Yeah, because I was thinking while you were talking about that, imagine if you would have recorded the interview so that you had a copy of the conversation, and imagine releasing that conversation to show what was actually discussed.
Interesting. I wasn't savvy or prepared enough. It happened too fast, and I was nervous, so I didn't even. Now I know. Now I know how it can go.
I don't know that anybody would be okay with it, but just imagine if that's how things really started to work in the media, where there was that level of transparency that I think needs to happen.
You know what's funny, Lisa, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick. Whenever, when I was watching this and this happened with Naomi Osaka, I'm staying with my father, and I asked him what he thought about it. And the first thing he said was, the media will make you, and the media will also break you. And whenever you're doing these interviews and being asked the same questions over and over again, they don't care. They will twist your words like nothing, and they don't care how it affects you, how it affects your family. They just care about making money. And it's crazy because he played for 12 years in the major leagues, and this is something that kind of like, it's something that is known. Everybody just knows that. I've talked to other, former players, and they all say exactly the same thing. And I am actually happy that Naomi took this stand and she did what was best for her, because I think it's time that there is more, people actually look at players as people and as humans, because they're not supernatural. So this is Leonie, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I
Beanie,
just add on something?
Beanie,
Oh,
I
go
want
ahead.
to have our closing words, actually, because I appreciate your perspective. So I'm just going to let Angie and
Thank you.
Vaga say some things. We only have about 9 minutes left, folks. So be respectful of the time that you take, and please be able to speak from your heart and say what you'd like, knowing that there's Angie and Vega and then Beanie to close us out. So Angie, thanks for being patient.
Yeah, thanks for having me up. So I'll be really quick. yeah, as everyone was saying, I think there just needs to be a more symbiotic relationship between athletes and the figures that be, because one can't exist without the other. And it's the case, like, okay, like if you're thinking of any athlete, yes, they have supernatural abilities, but that doesn't mean you have the right to dehumanize them and basically treat them just like, okay, you go out here because you're capital and you're going to perform, and that's the end of it. No, like you're still referring to a human being out there. So whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, any of it, you have to take that into consideration, because okay, like, for Naomi, she is out of this tournament, but there's still other players in this tournament. You still have to worry about them too, because you wouldn't have an event on the whole if you didn't have these athletes actually like, putting in the time and everything. So I think it's almost, just human decency that you actually treat them like you would anyone else, and not just like, okay, these are our cash cows and that's the end of it type thing.
Thanks,
And
Ange. That makes me remember what I was going to say about Josh's comment, and then we'll get to you, Vaga, and then Beanie, was about the Kevin Durant example. I mean, the difference between Kevin Durant, I mean, again, from my perspective, as not fully able to have knowledge base in every aspect of it, but that for Kevin, it was his choice to keep playing. It was his choice to go against what the doctor said and contribute to the team and all that. Like, and get injured. This is Naomi's choice to not keep going and to take the fine and then draw herself out. So I think that there's a consent piece, the athlete being able to be empowered enough to say, what they want and what they don't want. So I wanted to remember to say that. And Vaga, how are you? Thanks for being patient and welcome to the stage. Vaga, I see you're new to Clubhouse. Are you able to? Oh, there you go. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, actually, I'm from India. Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
So we can't hear you. You're super muffled and really your volume is low. Can you make yourself a little bit more audible?
Okay. Okay. Can I audible?
Okay, that's a little bit better. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Actually, what the topic are you talking about?
So we're running low on time right now. If you want to kind of sit and listen for a little bit and then be able to comment and go on the stage, that would be great. So I'm going to put you on mute for now,
Okay.
have you catch up. And then Beanie, I'm going to have you say a few closing words. We have about 5 minutes left. So I appreciate your perspective. I learn a lot from you when you speak, because those are not my knowledge areas. So please, Beanie, final words for this room.
All right, thanks, and thank you again for having me, and I appreciate everyone being so kind and respectful to this perspective. The thing is, a lot of people keep saying stuff about the press, the press, the press. In this situation, the press, in this particular situation, while Naomi was avoiding them, they did not do anything to her in this situation. This literally is about one corporation, hers, going against another. They can't make her this idea that somehow she was being taken advantage of. Naomi Osaka has the best lawyers money can buy. They weren't going to put her into a contract that would harm her in some way. Obviously, had they had known about their client having this issue, I'm sure they wouldn't have let her out to dry like that anyways. So there was a lapse in communication there somewhere along the line. But this, and also the second point being, again, whatever might be said about the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, those are employees. This is not that situation. This is literally one corporation breached the contract of another one. In a breach of contract, this was in the contract. If you breach a contract, no matter for whatever reason that the public might think is frivolous or wrong or whatever, if you breach a contract, there will be a penalty. And that penalty, they didn't just pull that penalty out of the sky. They couldn't do that to somebody like that. This was contractual. As they said, this is contractual for all of the athletes. This was not just, we're going to punish Naomi. This is what they said is the thing that was that they would have done to any of the athletes. That's what is stated in the contract. So I'm just saying, like, this isn't an apples to apples, because you're dealing with this whole situation where you don't have an actual employee. That's why there are no tennis unions. There's no players union here. She is her own corporation. And again, if you go into business with somebody and you break a contract, no matter what the reason, you owe them something. That's going to be in the contract. What happens if one of us breaks this contract? And again, $15,000 relative to what she makes is relatively a pittance. That might be a lot for you and me, but that on the grand scheme of things, it wasn't. It was basically saying that we have to do something to just show that, you know, the rest of the athletes can't do this same thing to us, especially when we are depending on them to promote our product as they have contractually agreed to do. So it's just about contracts. This isn't, I think it's just that there's a separate issue going on here about athletes' mental health. As a former athlete, I'm 100% behind that. And I think that's a real thing and it needs to be dealt with. Secondly, could there be things that can be run differently in terms of how press releases are press junkets or whatever like that are dealt with? Perhaps that is an avenue, but is it correct to bring forth this issue on the day of this event supposed to happen? So the thing here is, can we look at each issue as an individual issue and look at them separately, and also take this fine or whatever you want to call this is basically just the situation of business when you have people breaching each other's contracts. And again, this organization, as evil or whatever you want to look at how the corporation or the French Open may be, they still got 9,000 people that they employ, and those are 9,000 people that have that have to get paid, and they take their money home and they spend it in their communities. And majority of these employees that work in these places, in these stadiums in large cities like Paris and LA and New York, if you go there, you will see a whole lot of them happen to be people of color. So it's more complex than just saying this is all about her. It is
Oh,
about
I
her,
think
but there's other things as well. So
yeah, we
that's
have
the last thing I'll say.
yeah, we have one more minute left. I mean, I don't think anyone in this room thinks it's just about her. Or one thing. It is a very complex thing, and there's so many factors that influence it. I like what Angie said, that we have to find a more symbiotic way for everyone to get what they need. The media, the powers that be, the stakeholders, the athletes themselves, that we need to restructure things. I mean, that's where I'm coming from. Restructuring the way contracts are written, restructuring the sort of economic pressure of it, all of it. But I always appreciate, Beanie, your perspectives. Let's run a room together.
I'm all
DM,
for it.
yeah, DM
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mod. That's for anyone. If anyone wants to talk about athlete mental health, athlete sport performance, mindset, any of that, those are my passion points. If anyone wants to co-mod with me, please DM me, and we will arrange for that. Absolutely. And for now, Donnie, you're opening up your mic, but we're going to end this room in just a couple seconds. But Donnie, did you want to say something?
Well, just thank you very much for letting me participate and listen to everybody. Super important conversation to be had, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Donnie. Appreciate you being here. I know you're new to Clubhouse and new to Pro Sports Network, so keep coming back. Appreciate your insights as well, and thank you, everybody. Donnie, Josh, Beanie, Lori, Angie, Ronald and Corey, Richard, Charlene, Katsushiro, Bonita, Hernan, Samuel, and Rashawn. Thanks to everyone, and I look forward to ongoing conversations. That's how we're gonna, keep talking about these important topics, all of them. So thank you so much, and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you, Lee.